Well, welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs, everyone. My name again, if you haven't learned it yet, is JDavis. I'm the host of Radio Entrepreneurs. I'm also CEO of Mage, LLC, a management consulting firm in the Boston area since the early 1980s. And we've worked with hundreds of leaders and companies in transition and change. This is one of our special segments from the FEI, Financial Executives International. And that means that my co-host is the one and the only Evan Macedo, VP Finance and Operations at Sapers and Wallack. Welcome back, Evan.
Thank you, Jeffrey. It's a pleasure to be here, and I know we have another exciting guest to talk to today.
Well, Evan, I haven't spoken to you in a few days, so you must be avoiding me. But our next guest is Crystal Brown, CEO and co-founder of CircNova. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, that's good. And Crystal, why don't you tell us about CircNova before Evan starts dominating all the questions?
Sure. So CircNova is a drug discovery company where we leverage our trademarked AI Nova engine to identify, predictively analyze, and then generate novel RNA structures for the development of therapeutic medicines. We are very much that perfect marriage between deep tech and biotech, and very excited about our entrance to the market.
That's great.
Before you go, Evan, I got to get your background because how did you get to CircNova? Because if I read your bio, it's like you've done it all across the board, and I never would have guessed.
The words right out of my mouth, Jeffrey.
How did you get to CircNova? What was that route?
Yeah, I love to say that I fell into life science and biotech. So originally I was in automotive manufacturing. I was in that world for about 15 years. And while I was with Chrysler, very major, obviously, automotive brand, while I was with Chrysler, I had a really good friend of mine offer me or ask me if I could help support her family friend startup company. And could I do that from a financial standpoint by bookkeeping and just providing a little bit of part-time support? And I said, sure. What is the industry? And she said biotech. And that was my first introduction. I had never heard. I was like, what's the difference between healthcare and biotech and pharma? I don't understand. I'm a car girl. And lo and behold, by getting to know the CEO and that company, I was able to really understand and learn the industry through finance. So I always say, if you want to know a new industry, learn it by line items. That will teach you what you need to know. And so, yeah, I fell into it that way, and I supported that company. It was my first startup experience, and they IPO'd. So I had a very uncommon experience. I was like, oh, this is how all startups run. This is amazing. And supported the next venture, which was also successful. So I was blessed to be able to work in biotech for about 8 years before starting my own company. After that, I was able to start my first company, which was Great Lakes Biologics, where we were focused on IVT enzyme production, and ran into some first founder issues. I learned from the mistakes that a lot of first founders make and got right back out there, saw what was going on with circular RNA. My chief scientific officer, Joseph D'Angelo, supplied me with over 81 support articles and publications after we shut down GLB, which was Great Lakes Biologics, to introduce me to this market. And once I did my own due diligence, I was hooked. I was sold. I'm not a scientist, but I like to say I'm an amateur scientist by how excited I get by new discoveries. And so once we really looked at the market and looked at how we could possibly compete, I was sold, and we founded CircNova in May.
Wow.
And Crystal, I know it's very fascinating, this world of AI that all these companies are going into. And I know you have developed an AI engine to help power the solutions that you're putting out in the marketplace. Can you talk about how you're utilizing AI and how that is benefiting your clients at the end of the day?
Absolutely. So AI, we all know right now that's the new buzzword. Everybody's got AI somewhere within their model, but it really is at the core and crux of what we do. We are an AI drug discovery company. So our trademarked AI engine is called the Nova engine. What it does is it works to be able to increase the amount of RNA structural data that's out there. We have a ton of sequencing data, but sometimes there are limitations within the structural data that's available. So as we're generating more data, we'll be able to identify really viable candidates by increasing that data and then being able to accelerate the identification and then the generation of those candidates. The way that it best serves our customers is because we're partnering with research institutions and drug developers to be able to identify and then generate these assets for them. It would take a scientist manually well over 1,000 hours to do what it takes the Nova engine less than an hour to be able to at least identify and then really be able to add and lean into the development process.
I think that's incredible, the time saving that AI is going to bring into the medical biotech realm, which is very fascinating. In terms of targeting a specific area of that, are there any sorts of diseases or areas that you're looking to kind of help make improvements to make cures on?
Absolutely. And so that's always the challenge with AI, right? You can do so much with it. There are so many capabilities and opportunities. We really had to focus on where can we be the most successful. And that comes in the form of breast cancer. So for circular RNA and RNA therapies combined with breast cancer, that is the most highly publicized for success. So we've chosen to work with a partner, a research institution that we will be working towards identifying RNA therapies as it pertains to triple negative breast cancer.
Wow. Big difference from the automotive industry, wouldn't you say? Here you go.
Man.
You go from automotive, which is historically a very traditional industry, not, an innovator, to AI, the most innovative. You go from big corporate world, Midwest, to entrepreneurship. Tell us about the changes you've had to go through so that you can be successful in both worlds, because it's a different world.
Oh, I mean, it's night and day, right? But I always say I'm one of these people who's a lifelong learner, and I believe in using every experience to help you through the next experience. When you have that corporate lens and you come from an industry like automotive and you're trained in certain ways to be able to identify how to improve efficiencies, how to improve quality and productivity and not compromise your product, you take those lessons and you can transfer those skills to an innovative industry like AI. So what I'm really great at as CEO is being able to say, okay, this innovation is great. Let's narrow down the focus. Now, how do we build this? How do we scale and grow? And that takes a bit of a corporate mindset because you have to look and see who's done this before. How can we actually compete? Now, let's think about what type of traditional systems we need to bring in this. Everything can't be on the bleeding edge. We have to make sure we stabilize in certain way. So when we're thinking about the tech and we're thinking about the AI, I'm always thinking, okay, how do we back this up if we were to run into any issues? Can we feed in the AI to the system in a way that it won't slow us down? So I think going from corporate to startup, then back again, because I was in startup and I left very, very briefly and went back into corporate to work for a tier 1 GM supplier. I've always stayed on the edge of having a bird's eye view into this industry. I'm close enough to it and in it where I understand it and I know how we need to make the decisions startups need to make. But I've had enough experience from the outside in corporate to say, we can circumvent some of this stuff. We know how to avoid some of these pitfalls. So I think both worlds are very useful and they're not as separated as you think.
Well, that's an interesting analysis. And again, you have to live it to sort of understand the differences. But also recruiting must be different for you.
Very, very. So one thing I'm really excited about being in Boston is the talent. I mean, the talent's top tier and bar none. Midwest is great. I am a Midwest girl born and raised, so I will always say wonderful, glowing things. But when we talk about being a little bit more coastal or being in hubs like Boston, the resources are right there at your fingertips. We're on the cutting edge of innovation. We want to be in the place that's cutting edge as well. So the resources are just plentiful and very different markets. Like you said, Midwest versus Boston are very different environments.
So looking forward to next year, what are some goals that you're looking to set and try to accomplish as we move into 2024?
Sure. So right now, we have our generation 1 that we're working towards to be deployed on AWS system. The next year will have us really getting into Gen 2, getting that deployed. It'll get us through our pilot projects. We'll be able to come up with at least 3 candidates that we can move towards development. So year 1 is going to be very, very exciting. It's going to submit CircNova as a leader within the industry, and it's really going to benchmark some things in non-coding RNA that we're excited about.
This is really great. And I want to make sure you come back again, Crystal, because these interviews are short, and tell us how you're progressing. We want to hear all about it. It's wonderful. If someone wants to learn more about CircNova or connect with you, how would they find you?
Absolutely. You can find our webpage at circnova.com. I am on LinkedIn as Crystal Brown, CircNova LinkedIn page. And always, please feel free if they can contact Radio Entrepreneurs. It has just been amazing being a guest, and I so enjoy the conversations that I'm having with you and Evan and Jillian. So you can always reach me, and please do. I'm trying to get acclimated to the area and get more into the ecosystem. So would love for people to reach out.
Well, I moved here in 1981, and it's
no looking back.
One of my best decisions of my life. I want to thank you for being on Radio Entrepreneurs today, and we look forward to seeing you again and again. And thank you also, Evan. And we can find Evan at Sapers and Wallack, correct? And Evan Macedo on LinkedIn. And this is Radio Entrepreneurs.